UFC Vegas 50 is almost here. I'm going to give you my final picks, I'll give you general strategy for the week, and later in the video we'll build some lineups, so make sure you watch until the end. You can call me Kunith, let's make some money this week. If you haven't already, go back and watch the first look video from earlier in the week. It'll be linked in the description. That's where we go over the slate fighter by fighter, salary by salary. We talk about spots we like and spots that we don't like. That'll give you a good base of information coming into this final picks video where we're going to knock it out of the park. Now, as for this fight card, it's held up well. We have 14 fights. Nothing has been canceled yet. So a lot of fights for us to work with. Obviously, make sure that you're paying attention to weigh-ins and also watch out for that earlier start time, 4 p.m. Eastern this week. And there are a ton of close fights on the slate this week. You can go right down the slate and make a case for nearly every fighter to win their respective fights. And since that's the case, that means there's a lot of value at 8,000 and below, and I'm going to get into that for you now, starting with Cody Brundage. At 7,900, there's value on this side because Brundage's path to victory is to wrestle Lungiambula and maybe find the finish later in the fight on the ground. We have to obviously be mindful of the power that Brundage is up against, but Lungiambula doesn't really throw that often. He also allows his opponents to kind of dictate where the fight takes place. Think back to a week ago with Devontae Smith, Ludovic Klein. Smith was gassed out and he was moving backwards, accepting the clinch and not really throwing anything when there was some distance created. And it seemed like every time he was throwing, or nearly every time he was throwing, at least toward the end, he was landing. It was just a matter of not enough activity. I think that if Dolce Lungiambula finds himself down early, it's going to be hard for him to fight his way back into this one. Because after that first round, I don't think that the power is really going to be there, especially if Brundage is already working his grappling from there. And as you know by now, grappling upside really pays off on Draftkings, which makes Cody Brundage a decent value at 7,900. Now, early in the week, I liked Damon Jackson at 7,800, and I like Damon Jackson because of the grappling upside and the submission threat. Plus, we've seen Kirk taken down 5 times in his last fight by Amir Khani, but we have to kind of pump the brakes on Damon Jackson, in my opinion. This score against Charles Rosa looks incredible. 113, 6 takedowns, 3 reversals. But against Charles Rosa, you're going to get that backyard roll around in the grass kind of fight every time. Most of the other people that he's fought don't really allow him to get that kind of position. Ilia Topuria, I give him a pass. That guy's a stud. Mirsad Bektic has choked at the end of fights before. Mirsad Bektic was dominating Damon Jackson in this fight prior to this submission getting locked in. You see him get subbed by somebody like Yancy Medeiros. I just think that this is going to be a situation where a lot of people are going to play Damon Jackson because of the line movement and how much money has come in on him throughout the week. But I just had the thought, I had the idea, the vision of us playing Damon Jackson, and then on Saturday night, he's losing, and we're sitting there like, I knew it. I knew Damon Jackson is ass. Why would I pick him? Why would I? And he's one of these guys that he could really make you feel that way. So this looks like a situation where I think Damon Jackson is probably going to burn a lot of people. I'm not going to be one of them. I wanted to touch on him here in the value plays because I was talking him up earlier in the week, but I think there's a lot more value on the other side with Kamuela Kirk. This is probably a fight that I'm staying away from altogether just because Damon Jackson is tough and can hang around and maybe wrap up a submission in round 3 when he's losing and score about 58 points. So you never know. But I'm not looking to get there personally. Now I feel like we're kind of entering a little bit of no man's land. I'm not all that high on JJ Aldrich. I think that Roberson is going to be able to get the job done. I wonder who the president was when Guido Canetti was my age. It was George W. Bush. We got it. Okay. But Trevin Jones is actually kind of sneaky at 7,500. But Trevin Jones is one of these guys as well who might slow down. He might gas out. He doesn't really fight hard from behind. I don't like Trevin Jones this week. But there's power there, and it's a big step up in competition for the UFC debutant in Javier Basharat. So if you wanted to take a shot here at Trevin Jones, I'm not mad at you. Now I'm not doing it myself. So 7,300 Bruno Silva for obvious reasons. The knockout upside builds value into his price. In the past, opponents have been able to take him down and have some success in positions like that up against the fence, but Alex Pereira is not a threat for the takedown. And that takes a tremendous amount of pressure off of Bruno Silva, I think more than we understand. And in most fights, he goes into it knowing that his opponents don't want to stand with him. So I'm interested to see how his game plan changes, to see if he's more aggressive on the feet, because there won't be a threat for the takedown. I'm sure most of you feel this way, but I wouldn't be shocked if Bruno Silva won this fight and got the knockout. Now, he is up against a 6-inch reach advantage. He is up against a pretty lethal lead left hook. And we have seen Bruno Silva hit cleanly by lesser men. I still like Alex Pereira to win here, but you'd be wrong to think that there's not value on the side of Bruno Silva, because if he gets it done, probably over 100 points or close to it. Next value plays at 7,200, Terrance McKinney. I expect him to pull a ton of ownership this week. Drew Dober, for that reason, is fantastic leverage up at 9,000. But I do expect Terrance McKinney to get the job done in this spot. I actually think that he's going to get a submission win here. Drew Dober doesn't have great takedown defense, and I expect McKinney to maintain control of him during these scrambles on the ground. And there's a good chance that McKinney is better than we might think that he is, and he has a chance to really show us that. And at 7,200, he's one of my favorite plays of the week. I expect a lot of other people to get here again, but it's worth it at this price. Obviously, if there was a bit more build-up for this fight, if it wasn't on short notice, then we probably would have a higher price for Terrance McKinney. Drew Dober still may be the favorite. He's the more experienced guy. He's super durable. He can fight the whole 15 minutes, and he probably has the cardio advantage over Terrance McKinney if we had to guess. But in terms of DraftKings pricing, Terrance McKinney would probably be 7,700. Dober would probably be 8,300. So I think that this line is just a little off, and I want to take advantage of that. At 7,100, Alex Caceres wins this fight. I expect him to go under own this week, and y'all better show Alex Caceres some damn respect. The longevity alone makes him a legend in this game, in my opinion. And when I look at this fight, I see the longer, taller, more experienced, better grappler who's only been knocked out once in his 14-year career against Sodiq Yusuff, who has virtually no grappling, and I'm not sure he's as big of a puncher as we're making him out to be. Now, Caceres was rocked in his last fight against Sung Woo Choi, who's 6 feet tall with a 74-inch reach. Ultimately, he finds the back and gets the submission in that fight. Once it was in the clinch, it wasn't even close. But Yusuff's 5'9" with a 71-inch reach, so while he has power, he may struggle to find the mark. He may struggle to even get to Caceres. So, in my opinion, Alex Caceres wins this fight with footwork, with volume, and winning these clinch exchanges, probably finding Yusuff's back and getting some control time from there. And at 7,100, if he does win, you could probably expect around 90 points from him if the fight goes the way that we're describing. And I think that's enough at this price. I know earlier we said we need over 100 points from each position, but if you can't get that from the mid-range, then you're probably going to need somebody like Alex Caceres throwing up 95 points in a win against Sodiq. And the last value play that I want to go over with you, it's not Marlon Moraes, even though he's probably the better fighter, just durability, cardio, that's going to be his undoing this week. It's little P-head Sabina Mazo. So she has a tough task this week. She's fighting Miranda Maverick, and while I think she lights up Maverick on the feet, she may have no answer for the clinch. Mazo, and we've been saying this for a while, and I think everybody's starting to say this as well, she's just not very strong, and she's not technical enough to make up for the lack of strength when she's in these grappling exchanges. Now, Mazo is still very young, so she could obviously be improving, but this is just something that has plagued her for her entire UFC career, just allowing herself to be dominated in these clinch positions just based on a lack of physical strength. But I personally think that she could win every single minute of this fight that's fought at range. And I'm not really that high on Miranda Maverick. I picked against Maverick in her fight against Macy Barber, and I know the decision was a little dicey, but I mean, it came through. So if Mazo can keep her distance, keep her back off the cage, I think that she wins. I think that she pieces up Miranda Maverick. I think she's going to land the straighter shots, the faster shots. And she's obviously going to be able to do that from a further distance. So I like Sabina Mazo this week. I'm not going to get here on DraftKings, but I do have a straight bet on her, of course. Now, those are the value plays. Now I want to talk a little bit about what we need to do to be successful this week. My first piece of advice is probably fade the main event. I don't think Ankalaev is a wise play this week. He's too expensive and his ceiling is kind of limited. I expect a slower pace and kind of like the last main event that Thiago Santos was part of, just a lower scoring 5-round fight. It may go the distance. He may finish Santos, but I don't see him scoring a whole lot of points either way. And at 9,600, probably pulling over 50% ownership, I don't need to get there. And obviously don't play Thiago Santos. Really, this whole range at 9,000 and above, I'm kind of staying away from. We just talked about Ankalaev. I think that there's a limited ceiling and not as many points as you'd like from somebody at 9,600. Miranda Maverick could win. She could have a dominant performance where she secures a few takedowns, a lot of control time, strikes from the ground. Mazo's tough, so she'll eat these strikes and allow them to accumulate and accumulate and accumulate. So there is actually high ceiling potential for Miranda Maverick here, but I'm really not sold that she's even going to win her fight. I don't think that she's all that good. Matt Semelsberger is an absolute stud at 9,300. I think we need to talk about this just a little bit. Publicly, there's a lot of love for AJ Fletcher, and I really don't understand. What is different about this fight than the fight with Jason Witt? He's against a short, stocky wrestler. Witt has a bad chin. I don't think that AJ Fletcher's chin has really been tested all that much, so we could assume it's probably better. But at the same time, it's going to be real easy for Semelsberger to find that chin when he's got an 8-inch reach advantage. It blows my mind when I hear some of these other guys talk about what's going on this week and they just completely dismiss the 8-inch reach advantage. Like, oh yeah, well, the AJ Fletcher's going to be able to shoot for takedowns, to change levels under that reach. Stop it. Stop it. Semelsberger has size for the division. He's probably physically stronger or just as strong as AJ Fletcher. We know that he can crack, and he's got a huge reach and height advantage over somebody who's making their UFC debut. What happens when AJ Fletcher goes 0 for 3 on his first takedowns inside the first round and then he has to fight at range after that? He's probably going to be shocked. He's probably going to be gassed, and Matt Semelsberger is going to send one of those right down the pipe. And the best part about playing him this week is I expect him to go under-owned. I expect way more people to play Ankalaev and Yadong at this range. You might even see more people playing Miranda Maverick than Matt Semelsberger this week. So when we talk about leverage, matchup, upside, Matt Semelsberger is checking off all the boxes on our list. At 9,300, I love him this week. Song Yadong at 9,200 doesn't look terrible either. I expect him to finish this fight. I just don't know if it's going to happen inside the first round. But even a second round knockout, like here, he lands 30 strikes, he gets 1 knockdown, and he gets the knockout in the second round, and that's 92 points. That's really not bad. And when we build lineups in just a second, we'll try to fit both of these guys into something that makes sense. Yusuff and Dober, I feel the same way about both these guys. I don't even expect them to win their fights. So if we do remove too expensive and a couple of fighters that I'm not all that high on that I don't expect to win, we're left with Semelsberger, Yadong, and about 7,900 to spend on each fighter. Well, if we come down here to McKinney, we come down here to Caceres, now we've got 8,600 left to spend, and we'll be able to attack this mid-range. But this is where things start to get dicey because you're looking for a lot of finishing upside or a lot of value. Roberson and Roundtree, you might even get a little bit of Draftkings patty cake here with them not shooting for takedowns. And I could see a situation where the winner of this fight scores 60, 70 points. Dolce Lungiambula, I don't expect him to win. Kamuela Kirk, he probably does win, but limited finishing upside, limited ceiling for Kamuela Kirk. I like Gillian Robertson, but I think that her upside is limited as well. I think that the range that you really want to target is this Pereira, Mirzakhanov, and Javid Basharat range. If you could grab one of them, say it's Alex Pereira, you've got 8,300 left to spend. You can come down here to somebody like Cody Brundage. Now, at this point, if you wanted to, you could go up to Magomed Ankalaev in place of Song Yadong for a better matchup. But when I'm looking to attack tournaments, I'm probably going to come down from Ankalaev and get to somebody like Mirzakhanov. And I can even come off of Brundage and grab somebody like Javid Basharat. So this is something that I feel much better about. You've got high finishing upside in 1, 2, 3 spots. You've got hyper value in 2 if these guys pull off wins. And Javid Basharat could end up scoring a lot of points in his effort this week. I think his footwork on the outside and his wrestling is going to make a huge difference in this fight. I think it's going to look very similar to the Syed Yakub Krakhmanov and Trevin Jones fight last time we saw Jones in action. And that's something that I would consider playing in a more small field, say single entry kind of tournament. Now, one thing I was tinkering with through the week is if you took Pereira, Mirzakhanov, Basharat, and I do expect a lot of people to plug these into their lineups, this is going to force us to create more of a balanced lineup than what we had before. And let's say we go back to McKinney, we want to play Brundage, and we've got 8,500 to spend. And now we're kind of left in this range, and really what I would want to do is play Gillian Robertson. It's tough because we keep finding ourselves in positions where there's zero salary left on the table. But there's just a lot of fights on here that you expect to go the distance, and I think that these are the fighters that are going to give you the best chance of capturing some upside. Now, what I expect a lot of people to do this week is maybe play Ankalaev, play Yadong, play Pereira, come down to Terrance McKinney, probably grab somebody like Damon Jackson, and then they're forced having to play somebody down here. I expect a lot of people to play AJ Fletcher because now it's just, I'm realizing how it really helps the salary. It makes a lot of things possible for you, but I really don't expect him to win. You may want to come down from Yadong and play somebody like Mirzakhanov, and that way you don't have to go all the way down there to play AJ Fletcher. You might see some people try to capture some finishing upside from 5-star Jones, but again, I think that Basharat's got this one. But like we talked about right in the beginning, there are a lot of close fights this week. I could see a lot of these fights going either way. So when you're building your lineups, just be mindful of that. And if you see a fight that you think is really, really close, maybe don't target that fight, because if it goes the distance, it doesn't give you the amount of points that you need, then you lose. Please leave your questions about your lineups in the comments. I will get to them very quickly, as I'm sure you know. And if there's something that you think I'm wrong on, if there's something that you think I might be overlooking, let me know, because sometimes when you guys do that in the comments, it helps me with my process. So let me know if I'm not seeing straight. Let me know. As always, I'm going to quickly run through the card for you, give you my pick for each fight. We've been doing this for the last couple of weeks, maybe the last couple of months. If you've been following closely, can somebody tell me what my record is? That would be great, since like we started doing this at the end of the video. I'd love to know. But right at the top, we have Magomed Ankalaev, Yadong, Alex Caceres, Karl Roberson, Terrance McKinney, Alex Pereira, Matt Semelsberger, Gillian Robertson, Javid Basharat, Kamuela Kirk, Sabina Mazo, Cody Brundage, Chris Moutinho, and then I'm going to go with Azamat Mirzakhanov. So throw that 14-legger together. If you want to go Maverick instead of Mazo, I understand. Maybe build two. Maybe build two parlays if that's the case. But if you've gotten to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel. That way I can bring more of this to you.